Mom, how can I tell if... how did you know when you were in love with Dad?
Oh, I've been in love several times before. I got so I could recognize the symptoms.
Several times?
Mm-hmm. And each time I thought I'd found my Prince Charming. Most people fall in love quite a few times in their lives.
Well then, how can you tell when you're really in love?
Well, I'll have to think about that. Let's save it tomorrow, shall we?
All right. Good night.
Good night, dear.
Most people fall in love quite a few times. I wonder if Jack knows that.
I tell you, Bob, I haven't dated any girl but Nora in 2 months. We're really in love.
Uh-huh. And you were really in love with Betty and Mary and Dallas and I don't know who else. And there'll be others, I suppose.
Oh, no. That's over with. You know, Bob, Nora's the prettiest girl I've ever known. She's just as beautiful as...
Beautiful? And you think that's all that matters? Oh, hurry up and get in bed, will you?
Bob, did you feel this way when you fell in love with Jean?
Oh, look. I've felt that way lots of times. The trouble with you is, you don't seem to understand what love is really about. You young punks go to the movies a couple of times, do a little necking, and you think you're in love. I've never seen anything like it.
All I wanted to do was ask. You don't have to get sore about it, do you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack, but look at it this way. You just haven't been around enough to know what love really is. Believe me, it's nothing like the slush they give you in the movies.
Well, I don't know, Bob.
That's right. You don't know. Maybe you would understand better if... Say, I've got an idea. How'd you like to double date with Jean and me tomorrow night?
Why, sure, Bob. That would be swell. Sure you wouldn't mind?
Not if you let me get some sleep now. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, Jack, that sounds like loads of fun. See you tonight. Goodbye. Guess what, Mother? Jack and I are going on a double date with Jack's brother Bob and his girlfriend. They're engaged and so much in love. Jeannie has the most beautiful diamond.
Oh, that's fine, dear. I've met Bob. I think he's awfully nice.
I do, too.
And speaking of love, weren't you and I going to talk about that today?
Yes, we were.
I've been thinking about your question and, well, suppose we look at these snapshots together,
Snapshot?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do they have to do with love?
Oh, I was just thinking that they might help you to understand how your capacity for love grows and develops just as you grow and develop. Here, look at this one.
Oh, Mother, did you have to keep that?
You know, in a way, you were in love even then. Every baby loves its parents for their care and protection. Of course, some people expect that care and protection all their lives. They never grow up. But it is a kind of love. Now, compare that with this picture.
Oh, that's the boy who used to live next door. My, how he did love his teddy bear. Love?
That's right. That's a kind of love, too. Possessiveness. A love for the things you own.
Some of us never get over being possessive when we're in love, do we?
You're beginning to understand. Now, here's a snap that shows how we learn to return love by doing things for others.
Well, what about love of our friends? Isn't that a stage of love?
Yes, I think it is. Here, look at this.
Why, that's Betty and Ellen and Ann. I took that picture with my first camera. Oh, I know. There was a time when I wouldn't look at anyone but my... That's a new way of thinking about it. How can you tell when love is mature?
Well, mature love is more settled. Mature love has something of the other kind of love in it and something more. It's tender, unselfish, cooperative.
When I get serious about somebody, Mom, I want to have that kind of love.
That's a good idea, dear. And if you aren't sure, you can always ask yourself some questions. Are we really interested in the same things?
Basic things. I wonder. I'm going to watch Bob and Jean, see if they have a mature love.
Been here for quite some time.
Thank you. Oh, I'm having a wonderful time. I've never been here before.
Oh, we're so glad you could come. This is one of our favorite spots.
Yes, we sort of found it together, you might say, and we come here quite often. Oh, the real Chinese dishes are over here.
Thanks, Bob. Oh, Bob, look what came today.
What? Oh, the season tickets for our concert series.
And guess what? You're going to have to sit through another concert by that young French pianist you didn't like.
You mean the same one we saw last season?
That's right. Maybe this year you'll agree with me that he has real talent.
Well, maybe, but only if he's improved.
Oh, Bob. Well, at least we'll have fun debating it.
Do Bob and Jean have a mature love? Are they interested in the same thing? I'll say they are. They seem to have so many things to talk about and do together.
Say, Nora, talking about music, have you heard the new recording of the Brahms Violin Concerto?
Well, no, I guess I never really learned to appreciate classical music.
Uh-huh.
Are Jack and I interested in the same thing? I wonder. Another question Mom asked. Do we feel at ease with each other?
You know, there's no telling what we'll get, but I'm willing to take a chance if you are.
Oh, that's the fun of it, Bob. What about some of this watercress salad?
That's a fine idea.
Bob and Jean certainly are at ease with each other. But what about us?
Well, I've made up my mind. I'm going to have the leg of lamb.
Oh, well, I thought it would be fun to try a Chinese dish.
That's all right if you like that stuff. Me, I'll stick to the lamb.
Well,
Oh, come on, Nora. Take a chance with us on the lobster cantonese.
oh, I'd like that. No, I don't always feel at ease with Jack. He's so unpredictable. I guess I am, too. We don't really know each other. And Mom talks about being proud of each other. I wonder if I could ever be as proud of Jack as Jean is of Bob. Not right here and now, maybe. But he does have his point. When he gets out on that ball diamond, anybody would be proud of him. But I wonder if we'd ever agree on basic things.
Jack, do you know who I saw today? I saw Bill Johnson and his wife. You know, they've got a fine pair of little kids. They dress them up like cowboys.
Kids are such fun. Don't you think so, Nora?
Well, Oh, here's the waiter with our soup. Children. Oh, we've never talked about things like that. Or religion, or marriage, or money. Bob and Jean really understand each other. They do have a mature love.
Nora,
Jack, about our talk at the dance last night. In the garden, you know. Well, I guess after seeing Bob and Jean, I think that love, a real mature love, is more than I'd imagined.
I guess so. On Bob and Jean, it looks all right. But
We're not ready for that kind of attachment, are we? But we can still have a lot of fun, can't we?
sure we can. Would you like... How about going roller skating next Friday night?
Oh, Jack, that's a wonderful idea. That's the kind of fun I like. What time?
About 8:15.
Oh, swell. I'll see you then. Thanks for this evening. I'll see you then. Thanks for the... I'll see you then. Thanks for... I'll see you then. Thanks. I'll see you then. Good night.
Good night.
Dark clouds, heavy heart, sinking slow. World feels cold like a fading glow. One step, one breath, keep it near. Hold on tight through the fear. Don't give up, don't let go. Hold the spark, let it grow. Through the night, you find the dawn. Hold on, keep moving on.
The infant who cries and is held, who feels hunger and is fed, who experiences distress and is soothed, this infant is learning the basic syntax of attachment. They're learning that their needs matter, that other people can be trusted to respond, that the world is a place where reaching out brings someone closer rather than pushing them away. Or they're learning the opposite, that their cries go unanswered, that their needs are burdensome, that survival means not needing too much from anyone. This is what psychologists call attachment theory, first articulated by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. But it's not just academic psychology, it's the foundation upon which all our future loves will be built. The quality of our early attachments creates an internal working model, a kind of unconscious template that shapes how we'll approach intimacy for the rest of our lives. It answers fundamental questions we didn't know we were asking. Is it safe to need someone? Will they still be there if I'm difficult? Do I have to be perfect to deserve love? Can I trust that someone will stay? Secure attachment in childhood, the experience of having caregivers who are consistently responsive, emotionally available and reliable, creates what we might think of as a psychological trust fund. It's not that securely attached children never struggle with relationships or that they're guaranteed happy marriages. Rather, they carry forward a fundamental belief that they're worthy of love and that other people are generally trustworthy. This becomes the bedrock on which mature love can later be built. But here's what makes this complicated. Secure attachment isn't about perfect parenting. It's about good enough parenting, about caregivers who mess up and repair, who sometimes misread their child's needs but generally get it right, who aren't always available but are reliably available enough. The child learns that relationships survive rupture, that disconnection can be followed by reconnection, that you can be angry at someone and still love them, that needing someone doesn't make you weak. Contrast this with insecure attachment patterns, which develop when early caregiving is inconsistent, intrusive, neglectful, or frightening. These patterns aren't permanent scars or life sentences, they're adaptive strategies that made perfect sense in the context they developed. The child who learns to suppress their needs and appear self-sufficient, avoidant attachment, is responding rationally to caregivers who were uncomfortable with emotional dependence. The child who becomes anxious and hypervigilant about their caregiver's availability, anxious attachment, is adapting to unpredictable responsiveness. The child who seems disorganized and contradictory in their attachment behavior, disorganized attachment, is trying to solve an impossible problem. Their caregiver is simultaneously their source of safety and their source of fear. They're learning that their needs matter, that other people can be trusted to respond, that the world is a place where reaching out brings someone closer rather than pushing them away. Or they're learning the opposite, that their cries go unanswered, that their needs are burdensome, that survival means not needing too much from anyone. This is what psychologists call attachment theory, first articulated by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. But it's not just academic psychology, it's the foundation upon which all our future loves will be built. The quality of our early attachments creates an internal working model, a kind of unconscious template that shapes how we'll approach intimacy for the rest of our lives. It answers fundamental questions we didn't know we were asking. Is it safe to need someone? Will they still be there if I'm difficult? Do I have to be perfect to deserve love? Can I trust that someone will stay? Secure attachment in childhood, the experience of having caregivers who are consistently responsive, emotionally available, and reliable, creates what we might think of as a psychological trust fund. It's not that securely attached children never struggle with relationships or that they're guaranteed happy marriages. Rather, they carry forward a fundamental belief that they're worthy of love and that other people are generally trustworthy. This becomes the bedrock on which mature love can later be built. But here's what makes this complicated. Secure attachment isn't about perfect parenting, it's about good enough parenting, about caregivers who mess up and repair, who sometimes misread their child's needs but generally get it right, who aren't always available but are reliably available enough. The child learns that relationships survive rupture, that disconnection can be followed by reconnection, that you can be angry at someone and still love them, that needing someone doesn't make you weak. Contrast this with insecure attachment patterns, which develop when early caregiving is inconsistent, intrusive, neglectful, or frightening. These patterns aren't permanent scars or life sentences, they're adaptive strategies that made perfect sense in the context they developed. The child who learns to suppress their needs and appear self-sufficient, avoidant attachment, is responding rationally to caregivers who are uncomfortable with emotional dependence. The child who becomes anxious and hypervigilant about their caregiver's availability, anxious attachment, is adapting to unpredictable responsiveness. The child who seems disorganized and contradictory in their attachment behavior, disorganized attachment, is trying to solve an impossible problem. Their caregiver is simultaneously their source of safety and their source of fear. These early attachment patterns create what psychologists call internal working models of relationships, unconscious expectations about how love works, what we can expect from others, and what role we need to play to maintain connection, and these models are remarkably persistent. The avoidantly attached infant often becomes the teenager who doesn't understand what all the fuss is about relationships, who prides themselves on not needing anyone, who finds intimacy suffocating. The anxiously attached infant often becomes the adult who falls in love quickly and intensely, who experiences their partner's need for independence as rejection, who can never quite believe they're truly loved. But here's the crucial insight. These patterns aren't destiny, they're starting points. Understanding mature love means recognizing that we're all working with the attachment blueprints we inherited from childhood, but that these blueprints can be revised through new experiences, conscious effort, and, most powerfully, through relationships that challenge our old assumptions about how love works. The progression, stages of loving from childhood to adulthood, what we call love in childhood and adolescence, is actually a series of developmental rehearsals, each one preparing us for the complexity of mature adult intimacy. These stages aren't arbitrary or trivial, they're necessary. Each one teaches us something essential about the experience of loving and being loved. The possessive love of the toddler for their stuffed animal or favorite toy is our first experience of attachment to something outside ourselves. The first time we learn that losing something we love causes genuine pain. Watch a 3-year-old lose their beloved teddy bear and you'll see authentic grief, a preview of every loss they'll experience for the rest of their life. This isn't just cute, it's psychologically significant. The child is learning that love makes us vulnerable, that what we love can be lost, that attachment comes with risk. Then comes the fierce loyalty of childhood friendships, the best friend phase where children form intense, exclusive bonds. This is often the first time we experience love as reciprocal rather than one-directional. Parents love us whether we're lovable or not, that's their job, but friendship requires mutual attraction, shared interests, negotiation. The child who whispers secrets with their best friend is learning about trust, about the pleasure of being chosen, about how to maintain a relationship through conflict and change. They're learning that love isn't just about being taken care of, it's about taking care of each other. Then adolescence proper arrives, and with it, the intense, all-consuming romantic relationships that adults often remember with a mixture of nostalgia and embarrassment. These relationships are characterized by passion, drama, idealization, and a kind of merged identity. The couple who dresses alike, who can't bear to be apart, who create their own private language and inside jokes. From the outside, these relationships can look shallow or obsessive, but they serve a crucial developmental function. Teenage romance is where we first practice intimacy outside the family, where we learn to be vulnerable with someone who didn't raise us and isn't obligated to love us. It's where we discover what it feels like to be chosen by someone we've also chosen, to have someone care about our inner life and daily experiences, to matter to someone in a romantic way. These relationships are often unstable and short-lived, but that's because teenagers are still figuring out who they are. It's hard to build a stable relationship when your identity itself is under construction. What looks like drama is actually important psychological work. The couple who breaks up and gets back together repeatedly are learning about rupture and repair. The teenager who's devastated by a breakup is learning that heartbreak doesn't actually kill you, that you can survive the loss of someone you thought you couldn't live without. The one who falls in love with someone completely different from their last partner is experimenting with different versions of themselves, trying on different relationship styles like trying on different identities. Physical attraction and sexual desire add another dimension to adolescent relationships, one that can be overwhelming in its intensity. The experience of wanting someone physically, of being wanted in return, of navigating the complex landscape of sexual attraction and expression. This is profound and often confusing. There's a reason teenagers write such tortured poetry and listen to music about love on repeat. They're trying to metabolize experiences they don't yet have the psychological capacity to fully understand. But here's what makes adolescent love different from mature love. It's primarily about the self. Even when teenagers are genuinely caring and considerate of their partners, the relationship is mostly serving their own developmental needs. The need to feel attractive, to feel chosen, to establish independence from parents, to explore their identity through intimate connection with a peer. This isn't selfishness, it's developmentally appropriate. Teenagers are supposed to be figuring themselves out. The relationship is the vehicle for that self-discovery. The transition, when physical chemistry masquerades as compatibility, There's a particular kind of relationship that tends to happen in our late teens and early 20s, one that feels utterly different from teenage romance, but isn't quite mature love either. It's characterized by intense physical chemistry, passionate connection, and the conviction that we've found someone who truly gets us in a way no one else ever has. These relationships can last months or years, can involve moving in together or talking about marriage, can feel more real and adult than anything we've experienced before. But they're often built on a foundation that can't sustain a genuinely mature partnership. They're what we might call chemistry-driven relationships, intense, exciting, all-consuming, but ultimately lacking the deeper compatibility that mature love requires. The neuroscience of falling in love helps explain why these relationships feel so powerful. When we're newly infatuated, our brains are flooded with dopamine, norepinephrine, and other neurochemicals that create a state remarkably similar to cocaine use. We're literally getting high on the other person. Our attention narrows, focusing obsessively on the object of our affection. We feel euphoric when we're with them, anxious when we're apart. We interpret everything they do through a lens of idealization, overlooking red flags that seem obvious in retrospect. This neurochemical state serves an evolutionary function. It bonds us strongly enough to another person that will commit to the vulnerable process of building a life together, having children, creating something that outlasts our individual selves, but it's temporary. The intense dopamine rush of new love typically lasts between 6 months and 2 years. After that, the brain chemistry normalizes and we start seeing our partner more clearly. This is when many chemistry-driven relationships fall apart. Once the neurochemical fog lifts, we discover that the person we idealized doesn't actually share our values, that our communication styles are fundamentally incompatible, that what we mistook for deep connection was really just intense physical attraction and the excitement of novelty. We realize we don't actually enjoy spending time with them when we're not in bed or in the midst of some dramatic makeup scenario. But sometimes we don't realize this. Sometimes we mistake the fading of initial chemistry for falling out of love. So we either break up thinking it wasn't meant to be, or we try to recapture that initial intensity through drama, creating conflicts, breaking up and getting back together, having intense emotional confrontations. We chase the high of early infatuation instead of allowing the relationship to deepen into something more stable and genuinely intimate. The confusion happens because physical chemistry feels so significant. When we experience that electric attraction to someone, that magnetic pull, that sense of everything clicking into place when we're together, it's natural to think we've found something rare and special. And we have. Physical chemistry is real and important, but it's not the same as compatibility, and it's not sufficient for mature love. Chemistry is about excitement and attraction. Compatibility is about values, communication styles, life goals, emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and 100 other factors that determine whether two people can actually build a life together. You can have intense chemistry with someone who's completely wrong for you. You can have almost no initial chemistry with someone who becomes the love of your life once you actually get to know them. The transition from chemistry-driven relationships to mature love requires recognizing this distinction. It requires learning to ask different questions. Not just, do I feel attracted to them, or do they give me butterflies, but do I like who I am when I'm with them, and can we navigate conflict productively, and do we want similar things from life? This is harder than it sounds because our culture trains us to prioritize chemistry over compatibility. Every romantic movie, every love song, every romance novel emphasizes the importance of that instant spark, that overwhelming attraction, that sense of destiny when you meet the right person. We're taught that real love should feel like falling, like being swept away, like something that happens to us rather than something we choose and build. But mature love doesn't feel like falling. It feels like choosing, like building, like showing up even when it's not exciting, like having difficult conversations instead of dramatic fights, like being seen clearly, not idealized, and accepted anyway. The architecture of mature love, what makes it different? Mature love is built on a foundation that chemistry-driven relationships lack. It's not that physical attraction doesn't matter, it absolutely does. But in mature love, attraction is one component of a much more complex and resilient structure. Understanding this structure requires looking at several key dimensions that distinguish mature love from its earlier iterations. Differentiation and interdependence. One of the most significant markers of mature love is what psychologists call differentiation. The ability to maintain a solid sense of self while also being emotionally close to another person. This sounds simple, but it's actually quite difficult to achieve. It requires us to navigate a fundamental paradox. We want to be close to our partner, to share our lives with them, to be influenced by them, but we also need to maintain our own identity, our own preferences, our own internal sense of who we are. In less mature relationships, we tend to swing between two extremes. On one end is fusion or merger, where we lose ourselves in the relationship. We adopt all our partner's interests, defer to their preferences, measure our worth by their approval, feel anxious and incomplete when we're apart. We say we when we mean I. Struggle to make decisions without consulting them, feel threatened by their independence or separate interests. This feels like love, and it can be intensely intimate, but it's not sustainable. It's actually a kind of dependence that masquerades as closeness. On the other end is defensive independence, where we protect ourselves from intimacy by maintaining rigid boundaries and excessive autonomy. We insist we don't need anyone, avoid vulnerability, pull away when things get too close. We pride ourselves on self-sufficiency, but underneath is often anxiety about dependence, a fear that needing someone makes us weak or vulnerable to being hurt. Mature love requires finding what's called interdependence, a middle ground where we're emotionally close but still distinct, where we can lean on each other without losing ourselves, where we can be vulnerable without being consumed. This means we can say, I disagree with you about this, and that's okay, without it threatening the relationship. We can have separate interests and friendships without our partner feeling abandoned. We can need each other without it feeling desperate or suffocating. This differentiation develops gradually and often painfully. It requires us to tolerate our partner being different from us, having different needs and preferences, sometimes disappointing us or failing to meet our expectations, and staying committed anyway. It requires us to tolerate our own autonomy, our own separate selfhood, even when part of us wants to merge completely with another person. Realistic perception and acceptance. Mature love involves seeing our partner clearly, not idealizing them, not focusing only on their flaws, but seeing them as a whole, complex, flawed human being and choosing them anyway. This is very different from the idealization of early romance, where we project our fantasies onto the other person, seeing them as perfect or as the solution to all our problems. Idealization is actually a defense mechanism. It protects us from the anxiety of truly seeing another person with all their limitations and imperfections. When we idealize someone, we're not really in relationship with them, we're in relationship with our fantasy of them, and this sets us up for disappointment. Eventually, reality intrudes. They reveal character flaws, make mistakes, disappoint us. If we've idealized them, this feels like betrayal. How could they not be who we thought they were? But in mature love, we're not surprised by imperfection because we never expected perfection. We see our partner's flaws from the beginning. Maybe they're chronically late, or they interrupt when they're excited, or they shut down during conflict, or they're terrible at remembering birthdays. We see these things clearly and we make an active choice. These flaws don't outweigh what I love about this person, or these flaws are ones I can accept without resentment, or these flaws are ones we can work on together. This realistic perception extends to ourselves as well. Mature love means accepting that we're also flawed, that we also bring our own baggage and limitations to the relationship, that we're not the perfect partner any more than they are. This creates a kind of mutual humility, a recognition that we're both works in progress, both doing our best with the psychological resources we have. This doesn't mean settling or lowering our standards. It means having realistic standards, distinguishing between flaws that are genuine incompatibilities, they want kids and I don't, or they're financially irresponsible in ways that threaten our stability, and flaws that are just part of being human. They're not always in a good mood, or they don't always communicate perfectly. Emotional regulation and security. Mature love creates a kind of emotional stability that earlier relationships often lack. Not because mature relationships don't have conflict or difficult moments, they absolutely do, but because both partners have developed the capacity to regulate their emotions and maintain connection even through rupture. In less mature relationships, emotions tend to be dysregulated. Small conflicts escalate into huge fights. Misunderstandings feel like disasters. Any sign of distance or disconnection triggers panic or withdrawal. The relationship feels unstable, like it could end at any moment, so we're constantly monitoring for signs of trouble, constantly anxious about whether our partner still loves us, constantly trying to reassure ourselves that everything's okay. This emotional volatility isn't just drama or immaturity, it's often a sign of insecure attachment patterns playing out. The anxiously attached person experiences their partner's need for space as abandonment and responds with panic, protest, or attempts to force closeness. The avoidantly attached person experiences their partner's need for closeness as suffocation and responds by withdrawing, shutting down, or creating distance. Both are responding to genuine emotional experiences, but neither has developed the capacity to tolerate the discomfort of their partner being different from them. Mature love involves developing what psychologists call affect regulation, the ability to manage our emotional responses, to soothe ourselves when we're anxious or upset, to pause before reacting defensively, to stay present even when we're uncomfortable. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything's fine. It means experiencing our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Being able to express what we're feeling without attacking or blaming, being able to hear our partner's feelings without becoming defensive. This emotional regulation creates a secure base in the relationship, a sense that even when things are difficult, even when we're in conflict, even when we're disappointed or frustrated with each other, the relationship itself is solid. We trust that we can work through problems, that temporary disconnection doesn't mean permanent rupture, that loving someone and being angry at them can coexist. Reciprocal caretaking and mutual growth. Mature love is characterized by genuine reciprocity, a back-and-forth flow of giving and receiving, supporting and being supported, caring for and being cared for. This is different from the one-sided caretaking that characterizes many immature relationships, where one person does all the emotional labor while the other receives it, or where caretaking is transactional. I'll meet your needs if you meet mine. In mature love, both partners are invested in each other's well-being and growth. They genuinely want good things for each other, not just because it benefits them, but because they care about their partner as a separate person with their own dreams and struggles. This means sometimes supporting your partner in pursuing something that doesn't directly benefit you, or that might even require sacrifice from you. Supporting their career move that means relocating, encouraging them to spend time on a hobby you don't share, holding space for them to process difficult emotions even when it's uncomfortable for you. This reciprocal caretaking extends to growth and development. Mature partners challenge each other to become better versions of themselves. Not through criticism or trying to change each other, but through loving accountability, through believing in each other's potential, through creating a relationship environment that supports growth rather than stagnation. This is delicate territory because it's easy to confuse trying to help your partner grow with trying to fix or change them. The difference is this: healthy growth support means encouraging your partner to become more fully themselves, to develop their strengths, to work on challenges they've identified for themselves. Unhealthy fixing means wanting your partner to become who you want them to be, to meet your needs better, to eliminate the parts of themselves that inconvenience you. In mature love, we're not trying to complete each other or fix each other's wounds. We're supporting each other in becoming more whole on our own terms. This sometimes means having difficult conversations about patterns that aren't working, about ways we're hurting each other, about changes that need to happen. But these conversations come from a place of we're both capable of growth rather than you're broken and I need you to change. The questions that reveal maturity, how to assess real compatibility. The shift from chemistry-driven relationships to mature love involves asking ourselves different questions. Instead of focusing primarily on how the relationship makes us feel, we start evaluating whether the relationship actually works, whether it supports both partners in living meaningful lives, whether it can weather difficulty, whether it's built on a foundation solid enough to sustain the weight of real life. Do we share fundamental values? This goes deeper than having things in common or enjoying the same activities. Values are the principles that guide our decisions, the things we believe matter most in life, the way we think the world should work. Two people can both love hiking and hate the same TV shows and still have fundamentally incompatible values. Value compatibility shows up in questions like, how important is honesty versus protecting someone's feelings? How do we think about money? Is it for security, for experiences, for giving to others? How important is career success versus work-life balance? What do we believe about commitment? Is it something you work at no matter what, or is it contingent on both people staying happy? How do we handle conflict? Is it healthy to argue, or should couples avoid fighting? What role should family play in our lives? How important is personal growth and self-reflection? Couples with aligned values navigate life's challenges more smoothly because they're working from the same playbook. They don't have to negotiate every decision from scratch because they agree on the underlying principles. Couples with misaligned values find themselves in constant conflict because they're not just disagreeing about what to do, they're disagreeing about what matters. The tricky part is that values aren't always obvious early in a relationship, and they can be obscured by chemistry and good intentions. Someone might claim to value communication, but demonstrate through their actions that they value conflict avoidance. Someone might say family is important, but show through their choices that career takes priority. Assessing true values requires watching what people do over time, not just listening to what they say. Do we communicate effectively, especially during conflict? This might be the single most important predictor of relationship success. Not whether we fight, all couples fight, but how we fight. Researcher John Gottman has spent decades studying what makes relationships succeed or fail, and he's identified specific communication patterns that predict divorce with over 90% accuracy. He calls them the 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Criticism means attacking your partner's character rather than addressing specific behaviors. "You're so selfish," versus "I felt hurt when you forgot our plans." Contempt means treating your partner with disrespect, mockery, or disgust. Eye-rolling, sarcasm, name-calling, hostile humor. Defensiveness means refusing to take any responsibility, immediately counterattacking, playing the victim. Stonewalling means shutting down completely, refusing to engage, going silent as a way of punishing your partner. Mature couples don't avoid these patterns because they're somehow better people. They've learned, often through painful experience and conscious effort, to interrupt these patterns when they emerge. They've developed the capacity to say, "I need to take a break and come back to this when I'm calmer," instead of lashing out. They've learned to express complaints about specific behaviors instead of launching character attacks. They've learned to take responsibility for their part in conflicts instead of keeping score about who's more at fault. Effective communication also means being able to express needs and vulnerabilities directly, rather than through manipulation or indirect hints. It means being able to listen to your partner's perspective without immediately jumping to defend yourself. It means being able to repair after conflicts, to apologize genuinely, to reconnect emotionally, to learn from what went wrong instead of just moving on and hoping it doesn't happen again. The question isn't, do we communicate perfectly? Because no one does. The question is, are we both willing to work on our communication? Can we learn from our conflicts? Do we generally make each other feel heard and understood, or do we regularly leave conversations feeling worse than when we started? Do we feel comfortable being fully ourselves? Mature love creates space for authenticity. Both partners can show their whole selves, strengths and weaknesses, good moods and bad moods, attractive qualities and less attractive ones, without fear of rejection or judgment. This is very different from the performance anxiety of early relationships, where we're constantly monitoring ourselves, trying to be our best selves, hiding the parts we think might make us less lovable. This comfort with authenticity develops gradually. Early in relationships, we naturally want to make a good impression, to show our best side. That's normal and healthy, but as relationships mature, we start revealing more of ourselves. Our anxieties and insecurities, our weird habits and random preferences, the ways we're difficult or complicated or just odd, and we watch how our partner responds. Do they accept these revelations with curiosity and compassion, or do they pull back, express disappointment, try to change us? Can we be in a bad mood without them taking it personally? Can we pursue interests they don't share without them feeling threatened? Can we express uncertainty or vulnerability without them losing respect for us? This authenticity cuts both ways. Are we also accepting of our partner's full humanity? Do we make space for them to be imperfect, to have bad days, to be different from us? Or do we need them to be a certain way to feel comfortable, to meet our needs in specific ways, to conform to our expectations? Relationships where we can't be authentic eventually feel suffocating no matter how much chemistry exists. We become exhausted from the constant performance, resentful about hiding parts of ourselves, disconnected from our partner because they don't actually know us. Or we become resentful of our partner for not being who we need them to be, disappointed that they're not living up to our fantasies. Do we have compatible visions for the future? One of the most common ways relationships fail is when partners want fundamentally different things from life, but avoid talking about it because they love each other and hope it will somehow work out. This shows up in questions about, do we want children? If so, when and how many? How important is marriage or legal commitment? Where do we want to live? City or country, near family or far away? Settled in one place, or moving for opportunities? How do we balance career ambitions with other life priorities? How do we think about money, spending versus saving, experiences versus security? What kind of lifestyle do we want? Active and social, or quiet and private, adventurous or stable? These aren't just practical details to be figured out later. They're expressions of deeply held values and desires that shape the entire trajectory of a life. Two people can love each other deeply and still be incompatible if they want fundamentally different futures. The mature approach isn't to ignore these differences or assume they'll resolve themselves. It's to talk about them directly, early enough that both people can make informed decisions. Sometimes these conversations reveal that compromise is possible. One person wants kids slightly more than the other wants to be child-free, and they can find alignment. Sometimes they reveal deal breakers that mean the relationship, however loving, won't work long-term. This requires a kind of honesty that can feel scary. What if we acknowledge that we want different things and have to break up? But the alternative, building a relationship on unexamined assumptions, discovering years later that you're fundamentally incompatible, is far more painful. Do we bring out good qualities in each other? Here's a question that doesn't get asked enough. Do you like who you are in this relationship? Not just, do you like your partner, but do you like yourself when you're with them? Do you feel like a better version of yourself? Kinder, more patient, more generous, more confident, more creative? Or do you find yourself becoming more anxious, more defensive, more critical, more insecure? The right relationship doesn't complete us or fix our problems, but it does tend to support us in becoming more fully ourselves. We feel safer taking risks, more willing to be vulnerable, more capable of growth. We find ourselves being more generous because our partner's generosity inspires us. We become more honest because they've created a space where honesty feels safe. We become more confident because they believe in us. The wrong relationship, even with someone we love, can bring out our worst qualities. We become jealous or controlling because we feel insecure. We become critical or demanding because we're disappointed. We become withdrawn or resentful because we don't feel seen. We become a version of ourselves we don't particularly like. This isn't about blaming our partner for our behavior. We're responsible for how we act, but relationships create contexts that either support our better nature or trigger our defenses and insecurities. Paying attention to who we become in a relationship tells us something important about whether it's actually good for us. The shadow side, why we often choose chemistry over compatibility. If compatibility is so important, why do we so often prioritize chemistry instead? Why do we fall for people who are clearly wrong for us, stay in relationships that don't work, confuse intensity for intimacy? Understanding this requires looking at the psychological factors that drive our relationship choices, many of which operate below our conscious awareness. Repetition compulsion and familiar patterns. Freud noticed something strange about human behavior. We tend to repeat painful experiences rather than avoid them. He called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate familiar patterns, even when those patterns hurt us. In relationships, this shows up as a tendency to be attracted to partners who recreate dynamics from our childhood, especially problematic dynamics. The person raised by a critical parent often finds themselves attracted to critical partners. The person who had to work hard for their parents' attention is drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. The person who experienced inconsistent caregiving is attracted to hot and cold relationships that alternate between intensity and withdrawal. None of this is conscious or deliberate. We're not sitting around thinking, I want a partner who reminds me of my difficult parent, but our unconscious is drawn to what feels familiar, even when familiar equals painful. Why would we do this? One theory is that we're trying to master old trauma, to finally get it right, to prove that we can win the love we didn't fully receive as children. The adult who was criticized as a child unconsciously thinks, if I can just be good enough for this critical partner, maybe I can finally prove I'm worthy. It's an attempt to rewrite the past, but it rarely works because we're replaying the same script with a different cast. Another factor is that familiar patterns feel like home, even when home was dysfunctional. There's comfort in familiar dysfunction because at least we know how to navigate it. We know our role in the drama. We've developed coping strategies for this particular kind of pain. Healthy relationships can actually feel foreign and uncomfortable to people who grew up in unhealthy family systems because they don't match our internal template for what love should feel like. This is why chemistry can be misleading. What we experience as instant attraction or clicking is often our unconscious recognizing familiar patterns. We feel drawn to this person because something about them, their emotional availability, their communication style, their needs, their wounds, matches our internal working model of what relationships are supposed to be like. The chemistry we feel might actually be our psyche saying, yes, this person can help us replay our old traumas. Breaking this pattern requires awareness. We need to notice when we're attracted to familiar patterns rather than healthy ones, when we're confusing intensity for intimacy, when we're trying to win someone's love instead of simply receiving it. We need to learn to tolerate the discomfort of relationships that feel different from what we're used to trust that stable and secure can be deeply loving even if it doesn't feel as exciting as the familiar chaos. The intensity trap, mistaking drama for depth. There's a particular kind of relationship that feels profound and significant precisely because it's difficult and unstable. These are relationships characterized by frequent breakups and reunions, by passionate conflicts and tearful reconciliations, by the constant question of whether it's going to work out. And precisely because of this intensity, these relationships feel more meaningful than stable ones. This is what we might call the intensity trap, the belief that if a relationship requires this much work, causes this much emotion, creates this much drama, it must mean something important. We confuse the effort we're expending with the value of what we're building. We mistake emotional volatility for emotional depth. Part of this comes from our cultural narratives about love. Every great love story involves obstacles, conflicts, misunderstandings that threaten to tear the couple apart. Romeo and Juliet, Pride and Prejudice, The Notebook. The message is that true love is hard, that you have to fight for it, that obstacles prove the relationship is worth it. What we don't often see modelled is mature, stable love, the kind where two compatible people build a life together without constant drama. But there's also something psychologically compelling about dramatic relationships. The uncertainty keeps us hooked. The neuroscience of intermittent reinforcement explains why. When rewards are unpredictable, when we sometimes get what we want and sometimes don't, our brains become obsessed with trying to figure out the pattern with earning the reward. This is why gambling is so addictive. The unpredictable payoff creates a stronger dopamine response than a consistent one. Unstable relationships function the same way. When your partner is sometimes loving and available and sometimes distant and critical, your brain becomes focused on figuring out what makes them switch, how to earn the good version of them, how to avoid triggering the bad version. This creates intense preoccupation that feels like deep love, but is actually anxiety and hypervigilance. The intensity trap is particularly dangerous because it feels like passion, like the kind of all-consuming love we're told to seek. Breaking free from it requires recognizing that calm can be deeply loving, that ease can be profoundly intimate, that a relationship that doesn't consume all your emotional energy isn't necessarily lacking in depth, it's just leaving you with energy for the rest of your life. Fear of ordinariness and the fantasy of transformation. There's another factor that keeps us chasing chemistry over compatibility, the fear that choosing compatible but not wildly exciting means settling for an ordinary life. We want our love story to be special, extraordinary, the kind of thing that makes sense of all the loneliness and longing that came before. A relationship that's stable and comfortable can feel like giving up on magic, on the possibility that love will transform us into someone new. This fear is amplified by the way our culture treats different kinds of relationships. We celebrate the passionate love story, the couple who defied the odds, the romance that swept people off their feet. We don't make movies about people who carefully chose compatible partners and built satisfying lives together through conscious effort and good communication. That sounds boring, practical, unromantic. But here's what this narrative misses. Mature love is transformative, just not in the way we expect. It doesn't transform us through the intensity of passion or the drama of overcoming obstacles. It transforms us through the daily practice of being truly seen by another person, of learning to see them clearly in return, of staying present through difficulty, of choosing each other again and again. The transformation of mature love is subtler and slower than the dramatic transformation of passionate romance, but it's more lasting. We become more patient because patience is required. We become more honest because the relationship can hold our truth. We become more secure because we experience consistent love over time. We learn to repair because we navigate countless small ruptures. We become more ourselves because there's space for our full humanity. This transformation doesn't make a good movie because it happens in 1,000 small moments rather than dramatic gestures. It's the accumulation of morning coffee conversations, of navigating a family crisis together, of making up after an argument, of supporting each other through disappointment, of celebrating small victories, of choosing to stay curious about each other even after the initial novelty wears off. Choosing compatibility over chemistry isn't settling, it's choosing reality over fantasy, substance over style, transformation through steadiness rather than through intensity. It's recognizing that the most profound changes often happen in the context of safety and stability rather than chaos and uncertainty. The developmental work, How We Build Capacity for Mature Love. Understanding mature love intellectually is very different from being capable of it psychologically. Many people know what healthy relationships look like, but find themselves unable to create or sustain them. This isn't a failure of willpower or knowledge. It's because mature love requires psychological capacities that develop over time, often with significant effort and sometimes with professional help. Healing attachment wounds. For people with insecure attachment patterns, developing capacity for mature love often requires healing old wounds. This doesn't mean our past determines our future, or that people with difficult childhoods are doomed to relationship problems. But it does mean that unresolved attachment trauma tends to replay itself in adult relationships until we address it directly. The anxiously attached person needs to develop what's called self-soothing, the ability to calm themselves when they feel anxious about the relationship instead of seeking constant reassurance from their partner. This means learning to tolerate uncomfortable feelings without immediately acting on them, to question whether their anxiety reflects current reality or old patterns, to trust that temporary distance doesn't mean abandonment. The avoidantly attached person needs to develop tolerance for vulnerability and dependence. This means learning that needing someone doesn't make them weak, that intimacy doesn't have to be suffocating, that letting someone see their struggles won't lead to rejection. It means practicing staying present when they want to withdraw, expressing needs they've learned to suppress, allowing themselves to be influenced by their partner instead of maintaining rigid independence. The person with disorganized attachment faces perhaps the most difficult challenge, learning to trust that closeness is safe, that the people they love won't hurt them. This requires slowly building experiences of safety and reliability, often in therapy before it's possible in romantic relationships. All of this healing work is difficult and sometimes painful. It requires revisiting old wounds, feeling feelings we've spent years avoiding, changing patterns that have protected us even if they've also limited us. But it's possible. Attachment patterns can be earned secure, meaning people who didn't have secure attachment in childhood can develop it through new experiences and conscious work. Therapy can be crucial for this work, particularly therapy that addresses attachment and relationship patterns. But healing also happens in relationships themselves when we choose partners who are secure enough to hold space for our insecurities without being triggered by them, who can stay calm when we're anxious or stay present when we're distant, who can help us learn through experience that our old models of relationships don't have to play out forever. Developing emotional intelligence. Mature love requires emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand and manage our own emotions, and to recognize and respond to our partner's emotions. This sounds simple, but it's actually quite complex, involving several distinct skills. First is emotional awareness, the ability to notice what we're feeling as we're feeling it, rather than only in retrospect. Many people, particularly those who grew up in families where emotions were dismissed or dangerous, have learned to disconnect from their emotional experience. They might feel vaguely uncomfortable or irritable, but not be able to name the specific emotion, hurt, scared, disappointed, angry, or identify what triggered it. Second is emotional regulation, the ability to tolerate uncomfortable emotions without being overwhelmed by them or needing to immediately make them stop. This means we can feel hurt without lashing out, feel scared without panicking, feel angry without becoming cruel. We can experience the emotion, learn from it, and choose how to respond rather than being controlled by it. Third is emotional expression, the ability to communicate what we're feeling in ways that create understanding rather than defensiveness. This is the difference between "you're so inconsiderate," an attack, and "I felt hurt when you forgot our plans because it made me feel unimportant to you." Vulnerable expression of the impact of a specific behavior. Fourth is empathy, the ability to recognize and respond to our partner's emotional experience even when it's different from our own. This means we can hold space for their hurt even if we think it's disproportionate, can understand their anxiety even if it seems irrational to us, can validate their experience even if we disagree with their interpretation. Developing these skills takes practice. It requires slowing down enough to notice what we're feeling, getting curious about the feelings instead of immediately judging them as good or bad, learning to express them constructively, making space for our partner's different emotional reality. For many people, this means unlearning old patterns, the tendency to intellectualize emotions rather than feel them, to dismiss feelings as irrational, to use anger to cover vulnerability, to need our partner to feel exactly what we feel in order to validate our experience. Learning to choose consciously. Perhaps the most important developmental task is learning to make conscious relationship choices rather than being driven by unconscious patterns, chemistry alone, or the fear of being alone. This means developing what we might call conscious selectivity, being intentional about who we get involved with and why. This isn't about having a checklist or being rigid about requirements. It's about knowing ourselves well enough to know what we actually need in a partner versus what we think we're supposed to want. It's about being able to distinguish between qualities that genuinely matter for compatibility, shared values, communication style, emotional availability, and surface qualities that matter less than we think, physical type, similar hobbies, impressive resume. Conscious choosing also means being willing to walk away from relationships that don't work, even when there's love or chemistry or history. This is one of the hardest things to do, to acknowledge that loving someone isn't enough if the relationship itself is dysfunctional, if core incompatibilities exist, if you can't both grow in the relationship. It means valuing ourselves enough to believe we deserve a relationship that actually works, instead of one we have to constantly struggle to maintain. This selectivity often develops through experience, through being in relationships that taught us what we don't want, through getting better at recognizing red flags early, through learning to trust our intuition when something feels off, even if we can't articulate why. It requires us to be honest with ourselves about what we're tolerating and why, to notice when we're making excuses for problematic behavior or minimizing our own needs. For many people, this conscious choosing feels harsh or unromantic. Shouldn't love be spontaneous? Shouldn't we follow our hearts? But the truth is that our hearts are shaped by our histories, our wounds, our unconscious patterns. Following our hearts often means following our damage. Choosing consciously means bringing our adult wisdom and self-awareness into conversation with our feelings, making decisions that honor both what we want and what's actually good for us. The reality, what mature love actually looks and feels like. After all this analysis, what does mature love actually look like in practice? It's not the passionate intensity of new romance or the dramatic ups and downs of unstable relationships. It's something quieter and steadier, but no less profound. A partnership where both people feel valued and supported, where conflicts get resolved instead of accumulating, where both partners are committed to each other's well-being and the relationship's health. This working partnership makes the practical challenges of life more manageable, building careers, navigating finances, maintaining households, potentially raising children, caring for aging parents, dealing with health issues. All of this is easier with a true partner, someone you trust to show up, to share the load, to work through problems with you. But beyond practicality, a partnership that works provides something we all deeply need. The experience of not being alone, of having someone in your corner, of being part of a we that's stronger than either I alone. This doesn't mean losing ourselves in the relationship. In fact, mature love preserves and enhances our individuality. But it means having a companion for the journey, someone who knows our story intimately because they're helping write it. What we call love at 15 is fundamentally different from what we call love at 25 or 45, not because one is false and the other true, but because our capacity for love grows and deepens as we grow and deepen. Mature love isn't something we find or fall into. It's something we build consciously and continuously with someone who's also willing to do the building. It requires us to know ourselves deeply, to heal our attachment wounds, to develop emotional intelligence, to choose consciously instead of being driven by chemistry alone. It asks us to tolerate discomfort, to stay present through difficulty, to keep choosing each other even when it's not easy. This might sound unromantic, like we're reducing love to a set of skills and conscious choices, but there's profound romance in choosing someone clearly, in building something together that lasts, in being truly known and still loved. The romance isn't in the initial spark or the dramatic gesture. It's in the thousands of small moments of choosing each other, in the accumulation of shared experience, in the deep trust that develops when someone consistently shows up for you. Mature love doesn't feel like falling, it feels like coming home. It doesn't consume you, it supports you. It doesn't complete you, it complements you. It doesn't solve all your problems, it gives you a partner in facing them. And while the journey toward mature love requires significant psychological work, the destination is worth every uncomfortable conversation, every challenged defense, every old pattern we had to examine and release. Because ultimately, mature love offers us something we all deeply need. A relationship that actually works, that enhances our life instead of consuming it, that sees us clearly and loves us anyway, that creates a foundation secure enough to build a meaningful life upon, not because we found our perfect match or because the stars aligned, but because two imperfect people chose each other consciously and continue choosing each other daily, building something that neither could create alone. That's not how romantic movies tell the story, but it's how love actually works when we move beyond chemistry and wishful thinking into the reality of genuine partnership. And that reality, though less dramatic than the fantasy, is far more satisfying and sustainable. A love that lasts not because it was destined, but because it was chosen and tended and built with care.